So my name's Pam Evans, and I head up the Marketing and Development for Family Service and Guidance Center here in Topeka. We are so glad that you are joining us this evening for the How to Help Your Child Cope with Divorce. Krys Kershaw has a lot of great information for you that we really think you'll be able to take with you and hopefully put to good use after this is over with. I do want to let you know we are recording this session because we want to make sure that all of the folks that weren't able to tune in will be able to still get access to the information. We post these recorded Zoom calls on our webpage at fsgctopeka.com. There's a blue button on the website that says parenting resources. I encourage you to check that out. There's all kinds of great information on there. One other little piece of housekeeping for you all. If you are in attendance and need a certificate of attendance, if you would be so kind to, in the chat box, just type in your first name, last name, and email. We will gladly take care of that for you, get you that certificate after this event, probably tomorrow or maybe the next day. So please do that. We will have time for questions at the end because this is all for you. You know, you took the time out of your day and we want to make it as useful to you as possible. So without further ado, I'm going to turn this over to Miss Krys Kershaw. I think she will introduce herself and we'll jump right in. Krys?
Okay, so like Pam said, my name is Krys Kershaw. I am a staff clinician at Family Service and Guidance Center. I have been here for 3.5 years. Before that, I worked for an agency that helped keep kids out of foster care. And my role was to go into the home and basically do everything the family needed, from cleaning to helping them get to appointments, to helping with, working with the schools, just everything that the family could possibly need. Because of that, I have a lot of experience with working with a lot of different family dynamics. Our families weren't always together. Most kiddos had 2 homes. And so I've had plenty of experience working with those kinds of dynamics. The kids I work with now my youngest is 4 and my oldest is 18. So I have the whole gambit of ages that we work with at Family Service and Guidance Center. I was also a preschool teacher, so I have a little bit of experience with the little itty bitties, but I work with the older kids now. So, okay, so our objectives tonight, we're really going to talk about the 3 different kinds of divorces and how to give your children security and safety. We're going to talk about how sometimes children's needs can get lost. We're going to talk about creating connections. We're going to talk about how to have the conversation. And we're going to talk a little bit about how parents can kind of help get themselves through a divorce, because it's not only about the kids, right? It's also about you, because if you're not taking care of yourself, it's hard to take care of your kids to the best of your ability. At the end, I'm going to share some resources that may be helpful. Really, what I want to do tonight is be able to give you something to take with you that you can use, right? I want you to leave here with some sort of skill or maybe thinking about something a little bit differently that will help you through this whole process. Please feel free to use the chat feature. On my screen, I can't really see it, but if there's a question or a comment that comes up as we're going through this, please go ahead and use that chat feature. Pam's going to kind of keep an eye on that for me. So like she said, this is really for you all. And I want to make sure that the information that I'm sharing is something that's going to be relevant for your situation. So what are the 3 types of divorce? The first one is the cooperative divorce. We have the angry divorce and the distant divorce. And we're going to go a little bit into this, but this is something that Dr. Robert Emery came up with. And he suggested that divorces fall into 3 categories, which are listed here. And one thing we need to understand is it's not a contest. We're not trying to make our divorce more cooperative than somebody else, right? It's not a contest. Divorces sometimes happen. But the reason we put these into 3 categories this way is because there are specific things that we can do depending on the type of divorce that can help. There are specific things that we can say to our kids, specific ways to handle situations based on the type of divorce that we have. So we're going to go a little bit into what those 3 look like. So the cooperative divorce. People who, or parents who are having a cooperative divorce tend to kind of know how to put their child's needs first. They kind of know how to parent together. They're more likely to understand how to adjust a parenting plan. For example, if the kiddo needs to spend a little bit more time with mom or dad, they're usually pretty able to help mitigate that. If there is some special event that the kid is attending, they're able to kind of work together to figure out how that's going to work as their family is changing. They're likely, excuse me, they're likely to talk about divorce together. And it actually may come as a surprise to the kiddo, because people who are engaged in a cooperative divorce usually keep their marital problems between them, right? The kids may not see the fighting, they may not feel the stress. So because of that, it's really important to let kids kind of talk about how they're feeling. It's really important to let them express disappointment and sadness, because just as you're grieving the loss of a relationship, the kids are feeling those same things. And I think that's really, really important to remember. All the feelings that you're having, all the feelings of fear and disappointment and sadness, those kids are feeling too. So there's some things to do if you're going through a cooperative divorce. The first thing is you want to be sure that divorce is what you've decided on. If you're thinking about separation or talking about separation, don't mention divorce, right? Phrase it in a way that leads the child to understand it's separation versus divorce. You want to have a plan for wherever everybody is going to live and how the children will see each parent. You want to tell the kids together. You want to share your feelings and that it's okay and even healthy to let your children know that you are also sad and disappointed. You want to be affectionate. You want to listen more than you speak. And you want to follow up with your kids later just to see if they have any questions, give them some time to digest things. One of the things that, as you're talking with kids going through a cooperative divorce, you can start by saying, you know, something is about to change in our family and we've got to tell you about it. Acknowledge that it's hard to hear. Acknowledge that there is a divorce. Acknowledge that it's not the kiddo's fault, right? That's a really, really important part of all of this. Be ready to answer questions. Kind of go through and think about, you and your partner can kind of think about, you know, what might they be worried about? Well, they're going to be worried about, are they going to change schools? Are they going to have to move? Those kinds of things. So we'll go on to the next type, which is the angry divorce. And this one is a little bit different than the cooperative divorce, obviously. But sometimes one or both parents are so hurt by things that have damaged the marriage that they are unable to feel anything but anger. They act out their feelings through lack of cooperation, power struggles, and attempts to get back at the other parent. There's a level of conflict. They're often able to step away from another when there's that conflict. they may not be able to accurately determine their child's feelings because they're going through their own stuff, right? They're feeling their feelings so much that they're not able to accurately attend or even recognize their children's feelings. Another thing that can happen is that when there's an angry divorce, people may try to draw the kids in to the divorce and try to make them take sides or distance themselves from another parent. And that can be really, really toxic to kids. In fact, there's a lot of studies that show that parental conflict can have a negative effect on physical health, school performance, emotional health, and the ability to get along with peers. Adult relationships are also influenced negatively by children experiencing conflict between the parents in the home. So a couple of things that you can do if there's an angry divorce going on in your world. First, you have to deal with your anger. That may take the help of a therapist, and that's okay. But if you're too busy feeling your anger, your child's feelings may not be attended to. And that's what is the really important part. So it's okay to seek out some help for yourself. Second thing is it's important to build an invisible barrier around your kids by never putting them in the middle and by watching what you say and what you're doing every time you're around your kid. That's hard. That's really, really tough, but it is so crucial. Kids pick up on everything you say. They pick up on tone of your voice. They pick up on body language. They pick up everything. So it's really, really important to make sure that as you are interacting with your child's other parent, that you are putting your best foot forward and really making sure that what your child is seeing is appropriate behavior. In this type of divorce, the news of it doesn't really come as a shock. The kiddo may have experienced a lot of conflict in the home. They may have heard fighting. They may have been exposed to fighting. So usually it doesn't come as a surprise. A couple of things that you can say when you're having the talk about when there's this kind of divorce is just, Mom and I have been having a hard time getting along lately. And in order to help us get along and to help you be okay, we're going to separate and live in different homes. In other words, you got to acknowledge that things haven't been great. And then you can kind of move on from there. But in an angry divorce, that's kind of an important thing, is to acknowledge that things haven't been great. And we're trying to make it better for the family, even though the family may look different after this divorce. The last type is the distant divorce. And this is the one where parents tend to be more emotionally detached from each other. It's a little bit more cooperative than angry and a little bit more angry than cooperative. It's kind of right in the middle. There may be little emotional exchange between adults. In distant marriages, children are exposed to parental arguments, which is good, but they also don't see those loving interactions. When the news of divorce comes, it may not be a surprise to them. When talking to children about the divorce, distant parents must still abide by the golden-plated guarantee. Children must know they are not to blame, that they are loved, and that their parents will always be there for them. In a distant divorce, it is important to be affectionate towards your children, share your feelings, show your sadness, protect your children from your anger, ask questions, and offer age-appropriate answers. And we'll get to that in a little bit. But I guess the main point there is not every answer is age-appropriate, right? We wouldn't say things to a high schooler we would say to a preschooler and vice versa. We'll get on to that a little bit down the line. So how to talk about your co-parent. When you refer to your child's parent as an ex, that can give the impression to the kid that they are not only your ex, but they are an ex-parent. So it's better for your kid to refer to them as a co-parent or child's mother or father. Years ago, I worked with a really amazing judge, and she was wonderful. But she had one rule for families that were divorcing. Her rule was, if you are in 100 miles of your child, then you may not speak in a derogatory manner about your child's parent. Again, it kind of goes back to your kids are going to hear everything you say. And once kids hear you talking about their co-parent in a derogatory manner, they are going to pick up on that, and it's going to make them feel like they need to take sides. So in order to avoid that, we use things like co-parent and child's name, mother or father. We want to say that the child lives with both parents, right? Not visiting, because we want them to have ownership in both homes. We want them to know that they're safe in both places. So when we say visit, it doesn't really make it feel like they have a space in that other home, right? We want them to be able to know that they're safe wherever they are. Of course, don't badmouth your child, especially when you're around your child. That one kind of goes back to what the judge that I worked with said. Parents or kids pick up on it, right? And even if the child's not in the room, what's your energy like when you get done talking about your ex in a derogatory manner? Are you able to interact with them afterwards, or do you let your anger get in the way? It's important to kind of know that about yourself and do what's best for your kid. The next one, attempt to make positive remarks about the co-parent. How hard is that for some of us? It can be pretty difficult, right? So I'm going to share another story. When I was working in a preschool, actually I was working with the toddlers, but we had this one kiddo, and he sometimes was a handful. He was a big handful. But every day we had to turn in what we called a daily sheet, which kind of just told about the kiddo's day and how he had done and all those kind of things. Some days the only thing we could write on there was, wow, Nathan's shirt looked really, really nice with his eyes. In other words, he hadn't had the best day, but we still had to find something good. You can always find something good about your co-parent. And that's what we need to focus on with the kids, because we want them to focus on that too. My guess is in the experience that I've had with divorcing parents, they want to make sure that relationship between their child and the other parent stays strong. And that's one way you can do that, is finding positive things to talk about when it comes to your co-parent. The last one is, don't use kids as a communicator to go between you and your co-parent. That just makes kids feel like they need to take sides, and that can be really, really tough. Okay, how to tell your children. Most parents worry about telling their kids because it'll be heartbreaking or overwhelming. If you and your co-parent cannot sit down calmly and reasonably, then it's okay to have separate conversations. If you don't know all the logistics yet about where the child's going to live or who's going to be living where, it's okay to communicate that and let them help be part of that, right? Especially with older kiddos, it's okay for them to be able to voice their opinions and to talk about what they need. And it's really, really important that that happens. It's important to have a united front and to make sure that there's no back and forth between you and your co-parent as this talk is happening. And like I said, if it's an angry divorce and you aren't able to sit in the room with your co-parent, it's okay to have separate discussions. Again, be prepared to talk about logistics. Kids are going to want to know. They're going to have questions. They're going to want to know if they have to change schools. They're going to want to know where mom and dad are going to be. They need that in order to feel safe. It's important to stay as calm as possible, because the calmer you are, the calmer your kiddo is going to be, and the easier it's going to be for them. Not that it's going to be easy, but it does help. They pick up on your tone. They pick up on your body language. They pick up on all those things. So when we're thinking about having that first talk with a kid about getting a divorce, it's important to only talk about divorce when you are totally, completely sure this is what's happening. If you're just considering separation, don't mention divorce. Be age appropriate. Like we said earlier, you wouldn't talk about divorce to a preschooler the same way you would to a high schooler. There's information that younger kiddos don't need to know, right? There's information that older kiddos are going to want to know. This brings up the question about, well, what happens if my child's co-parent is doing or dealing with addiction or something that they're going through? For younger kids, it can be something, you can say something like, well, right now, your mom or dad is going through some grown-up things. And in order to keep everybody safe, this is how we're going to do things. It's really, really, really important that the kiddo knows that it's not their fault. It's also important to let them know that you worked on it, right? We are sorry and we worked on this marriage, we just couldn't fix it. Let's see. And that's the it's nobody's fault is really important, because kids are going to blame themselves, but they're also going to, or parents, as we go through this, kind of have a tendency to want our kids to be on our side, right? We want them to kind of side with us. We can't put the kids through that, right? It causes a lot of problems. It causes them to feel like they have to choose a side, and it might make them feel guilty or uncomfortable having loving feelings towards your co-parent. So that's something we absolutely want to avoid. As we're thinking again about the first talk, some more tips is to let them know that you love them and we're always going to be your parents. You will have a home with both of us. And that goes back to, the language we use. We're not visiting. The child has a home in both of your homes. Again, I go back to be prepared to answering logistics. Be ready to answer questions. The more you're able to do that, the less anxiety your child's going to feel. Okay, so a few more tips. The first one here, avoid anxiety by not telling your children that you need to talk to them. Think about the last time somebody said, we need to have a talk. How did you feel through the rest of that day? Did you have some anxiety, or did you kind of forget about it? I can tell you, in my experience, kids are going to have anxiety. So it's important to help mitigate that by not telling them we need to sit down and have a talk. It's important that all siblings should be told together. The first reason is that being the only one in a sibling set that knows about a divorce puts a heavy burden on that child. Okay, because they have this big secret that nobody else has, and they're the only one that knows, so they're the only one that's processing it. It's good to have all kids process it kind of at the same time. And also, when one sibling is told before the other, it can kind of maybe make that child feel a little more important than other kids. So it's important to tell them all together. One thing we want to avoid is telling people or telling your kiddos in a public place We want it to be in a safe place, a quiet place. We want to avoid doing around the holidays, because that can kind of put a damper on the holidays after that. We also want to make sure that you and your children are not feeling ill, and you're not hungry and you're not tired. That just makes things so much tougher. Okay, some more tips. We want to speak truthfully. Children can become easily anxious if they know, hold on, I'm on the wrong slide. Okay. Speak truthfully. It's really, really difficult for kids to get through this if they don't know exactly what's going on. Part of that is you have to be really, really age appropriate. Again, I keep saying this, you wouldn't tell a preschooler the same thing you tell a high schooler. Some kids are going to need more information. Other kids aren't going to be able to handle it. When you have this first conversation, make sure that you are willing to spend the time with your kids to help process. The other part of that is that when kids are first told, they may want to have some space, and that's okay. Give them a little bit of time and space to process. But I would encourage you to speak with them and kind of make an arrangement of, okay, well, if you want to go hang out in your room for a little while, I'm going to come check on you later if that's okay. And then you're able to kind of come back and check in on them, see how they're feeling. After they have processed, they may have some other questions that have come up. Okay, some common questions and some good responses to them. Kid may want to know, will I go to the same school? And you can let them know that we're going to do our best to keep your routine the same, but there may be a few changes. You may be leaving for school from dad's house and going to mom's house after school. But let them know that you've thought about it and you've kind of figured it out. Another question they may ask is, will I have the same friends? A good response to that is, we will try our best to keep up with play dates with your friends, although they may not always be at this house. So keeping friends is super important, and letting them know that they're not going to be isolated from their friends just because they're at mom's house or dad's house is really important. The next question, will you ever get back together? Again, if you're not certain that divorce is what's going to happen, don't have this conversation. But if you're having this conversation, you need to let them know that, no, I'm sorry, we're not going to get back together. So another follow-up question kiddos might have is, do you love each other anymore? There's a couple ways you can answer this one. Either no, we don't. We used to love each other and now we don't feel that way anymore. Or we'll always love each other because we made you together, but we don't love each other like married people should. And the final question, do you still love me? And of course, the answer is, we will always love you so much. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about some of the reactions that kids might experience. For older children, if they're used to being in charge, they may be more reliable or responsible. They may try not to give them too much responsibility, because this might suppress their expression of feelings and make them more resentful. For middle children, they often get lost in the shuffle. They fill a peacemaker role. They may need a little bit more one-on-one time for processing, which they might not get otherwise, as well as time with friends. So that's a really, really important thing right there, the one-on-one time. One of the biggest things that I see with children coming from divorced families is they're not getting that one-on-one time with one parent or the other. We all have busy, busy lives, and a lot of times when you are made the residential parent, that gets a lot busier. One thing I would really, really encourage you to do is set aside a time each day to spend with your kid, even if it's 15 minutes. Check in with them, ask how their day has gone. Tell them about your day. Connection through a divorce is so incredibly important. And just taking that 15 minutes is one way that you can do that. For the youngest children, youngest kids are more likely to be risk takers. They're used to being protected from consequences. They're likely to worry there may not be enough time or resources left for them, and they need reassurance and time to adjust to new expectations. If you're an only child, often only children are seen as high functioning. They may be more pressured to be good and more caught up in the middle and isolated. They will need increased time with supportive friends as well as fun times with each parent to allow a child to feel valued and appreciated. So again, it goes back to spending that one-on-one time, right? One of the things that help kids through divorce is just having that one-on-one time. Setting up little rituals is also really important. So for example, when you have your child coming back from visiting your co-parent, even having like a little handshake or, special hug or anything that can become a ritual can be really, really helpful. So divorce tends to lead to intense emotions. And remember that all the things that you're feeling, your children are also feeling. The difference is that as adults, we have the ability to process things. And it's important to validate the feelings that your children have and not be dismissive. For example, one of the things that I see a lot is, oh, okay, so a child is talking about how sad they are during a divorce. And a parent says, well, we're all sad. Or a parent is having, or a kiddo is struggling with transitions between the home, right? They have a tough time going to dad's and then coming back to mom's. And a parent will say, oh no, you're fine. You're fine. It'll be fine. Well, that may be, but for that kiddo in that moment, it's not fine. And we need to be able to hear and validate them. One really good technique for this is just reflective listening. Kids want us to understand what they're feeling. They want to feel like they're being heard. And so just saying, if your kiddo is saying, I'm really sad, the response could be, yeah, that's okay. I'm sad too. What's making you the most sad? And then once they tell you, you can repeat it back to them in your own words. That lets them know that you heard them, that you understand them, and also helps you to know that you understand them, right? Because that's going to help you know how to handle the situation. Of course, some of the common reactions are sadness, anger, resentment, grief, and relief. It's okay to feel all of those, and it's okay for your kiddo to feel all of those. Give them permission, just like you give yourself permission to feel those things. Understanding and accepting your own emotions will also help you better support your child. So that goes back to, if you're having a hard time with things and you are so angry, it's going to be really, really hard for you to help your child through their anger if you haven't dealt with yours. Same with all the emotions. If you are feeling a lot of sadness and you're not tending to yourself, it's going to be hard for you to tend to your kiddos. So this is a little bit what I said a little bit ago. Not suppressing or avoiding the emotion just so we can decrease distress in that exact moment. Saying don't feel sad, instead validating it. I know you feel sad right now. Feeling sad is okay. I love you and I'm here for you if you want a hug or to talk. It's as simple as that. Letting them know that they're heard, letting them know that they're understood is the most important thing you can do throughout this whole process. As adults, we must also be careful not to invalidate children's emotions by making a statement such as, "There's nothing to get upset about. Don't be mad. He didn't mean it." Those are hard things for kids to hear, and it makes them tend to suppress things. And in my experience, when children, well, any children, but especially those coming from divorced homes, when they try to suppress their feelings, they end up becoming kind of a bottle of soda, right? They just kind of, it's kind of like you shake up a bottle of soda and then it all just explodes. When you don't suppress their feelings and you give them permission to not only feel those things, but to talk to you about those things, it's kind of like when you open a bottle of soda that you know has been shaken up, we just a little bit of air out and then stop it, and then doing a little bit. Eventually, all of that is going to be out and you're going to be able to drink the soda. It's kind of the same thing. We have to let kids have that moment of, well, be able to talk about it so it doesn't get all kind of stuck inside. Help them understand that it's normal to have really uncomfortable emotions, and it's okay. And allowing ourselves to feel free and accept those feelings, we can cope with them better. So different personalities are going to respond to divorces differently. If you have a strong-willed child, they're going to want to have their own way. They're going to be stubborn. They're going to have tantrums. They might be hard to soothe. They might have difficulty with new routines and being flexible. We want to provide choices and allow them space for opinions and can be open to compromise. So this kind of goes back to what I said a little bit ago about we want to have some things that children can put their input in, right? Obviously, you know, we're the adults, but the more input that the kids can have, the more ownership they're going to have for it, and the better it's going to be for them. Also, the strong-willed child, it's really good for them to have a very structured routine. For any kid, it's good to have them be in a structured routine. So ADHD kids, be ready for some behavior issues. But when those issues come, ask yourself, why are they engaging in this behavior? Are they engaging this behavior because they really want to be bad right now? Or are they needing something? Do they need to talk about something? Are they feeling some type of way about something? Behavior is never just because. There's always a reason behind it. And that's one of the things that I really hope that you're able to take away from tonight. When you see a child acting out, there's always a reason. So it's important for you to ask yourself, what is the reason for this behavior? What is my child trying to tell me, get me to do, or trying to help me understand? When you have a kiddo that is highly sensitive, they are really good at perceiving emotions. So that goes back to when you're talking about your co-parent or interacting with your co-parent, making sure that you are interacting in a way that's going to help your child instead of make them question what's going on, right? Building that protective bubble around them. Highly sensitive kiddos tend to not like loud noises. They struggle to go with the flow. They're more sensitive to missing absent parents. They need to be more shielded, and they need reassurance, right? As far as going with the flow, one of the things that I found really, really helpful is to help them make a calendar, have their own calendar. So they know exactly where they're going to be, when they're going to be, when they're going to be there, how they're going to get there, when they're going to leave, all of that. It's also for younger kids, doing a picture book to kind of help them understand, you know, on Tuesdays, I go to school and then dad picks me up. On Wednesdays, Mom is going to pick me up and take me to karate. You know, kind of give them a picture schedule of them actually doing the things in the picture so that they can not only have the visual, but they know exactly what's coming next. So when you're talking about divorce with preschoolers and toddlers, you got to speak very simply and straightforwardly. Tell them everything that's happening, but do it in a way that they're going to understand. Got to give them some extra love. You got to use positive remarks about co-parents whenever possible, and I think that goes for any age. You have to keep control of your own emotions. Kids this age understand the world through others, and when they see you having problems handling your emotions, that's going to make it hard for them. Create rituals that are predictable and comforting. So that goes back to, when your child comes back to your home, do you have a special ritual? Do you sit down and have a cookie? Do you watch a movie? Do you go for a walk? All those things are rituals that help with transitions. Be prepared to deal with tantrums and regression. But again, think about, what is my child trying to express? What is my child trying to tell me? What are they trying to get me to understand with this behavior? And of course, with this age, it's very, very, very important to remind them all the time, this is not their fault. Elementary school kids, at this age, children are prioritizing friends and activities over time with parents, and they should be allowed to engage with their friends. While it's important to have quality time, remember that you need to show your kid that even though they were consulted about the divorce, needs and desires do matter, and happiness does matter to you and the other parent. Let them engage in emotional processing with a variety of topics like, what was your favorite part of the school? What did you play at recess? Compliments that draw your child out, comparisons between you and your child, where competitions where you and your child play something and the child wins, asking your child for advice, opinions, or help. Like, what's a good movie that we should see together? Can you tell me about that book or video game? Comments that indicate that you're important to me. Hey, I thought of you today when I did this. We want to work on encouraging, bringing up feelings without asking, and using sometimes, like, sometimes I feel like this, and I'm wondering if you're feeling the same thing. Sometimes when I think about this divorce and how our family is changing, I get really angry. Does that happen for you? With younger elementary school kids, it's wonderful to let them play make-believe. It's good to help share your past experiences, and really, really good to help kids read books about divorce. And again, with every age, it's important to have that quality one-on-one time with them. Excuse me. So middle school. That's the easiest age, right? Nothing happens in middle school. Middle school kids are just easy to get along with. Maybe not. This is the hardest age to have your parents divorce, because you can understand more but may still have unrealistic fantasies or assumptions that nothing will change. It's also harder to self-regulate emotions at this age, and some middle schoolers can get kind of prickly when they're frustrated by parents. Discussing right and wrong and black and white, and how black and white thinking can make things more difficult. It either has to be one way or the other. There's no compromise. So help them get out of that thinking pattern. Talk generally about what makes relationship healthy and unhealthy. Yes, I'm not married anymore, and when Dad and I don't love each other and yelled a lot, that wasn't very healthy for everyone. But we had good times, and we had you together. Your grandma and grandpa always talked things through and listened to each other. They had a really healthy relationship. So helping them understand what's healthy versus unhealthy. Balancing time together and time apart, letting them have time with their friends. Providing empathy and respect, even with kids who are self-involved or silly. So one secret that I like to tell parents, because it doesn't seem true, is even if your child is being silly or seems like they're not listening, they're still listening. They're still hearing you. And somewhere in the back of their mind, they are getting the information that you want them to hear. So it's important to have these conversations, even if they seem like they're not engaging. High school kids. High school kids, when there's a divorce going on, you can expect them to be impulsive. It's good to acknowledge their stress and pressure. We want to give them opportunities to make important decisions. Want to help increase interactions with friends and freedom, but set and discuss limits. And that's something that they can have a say in, right? And it's also really important to try to have all the rules about freedom and time limits pretty much the same at both houses, but understand that your co-parent's home is your co-parent's home, and that's how it is. They have little say at your home, but you also have little say at their home. It's good to find balance between too much time and too much space and too little. Utilize empathy and be flexible. So we've had the talk. So now what? What do we do after that? Conflict between parents, married or divorced, is one of the most important predictors of psychological problems in children. This is why for many children, divorce causes problems to arise. To some degree, you can control amounts of conflict between you and the other parent. You might feel justified in being angry and argue their point. You might even fight, or you might even be right. But the moment you put your children first, that conflict must be controlled. And that means you have to be in control, not of your child, not of your ex, but of yourself. So being in charge of yourself rather than your co-parent, right? Divorce does not ruin children's lives, as children can be resilient, loving, and carefree. Children will be different after the divorce, but they are not destined to a life of emotional turmoil. We help children most when we make decisions putting them first. This means being in control of your emotions, words, and actions in your approach to your divorce. Again, that comes back to if you're handling your stuff, you can help your kid handle theirs. But if you're not, then it's going to be harder for your child to handle what they're going through. Healthy boundaries. Children who are described as mature or too grown up accidentally become confidants or best friends to their parents. This is usually seen with girls and older children and sensitive children. This is something that comes up a lot. One child feels kind of responsible for taking care of a parent, right? We got to avoid that. Find a therapist, find a friend, find a coworker. Find somebody to talk about those things because it's important for you to do, but don't make your child your confidant. Children want to be seen as mature, responsible, and important. So they will likely hide any distress when they're hearing issues. Often, especially with girls, it makes them feel like they're very grown up. And once the child becomes a confidant, you see a lot of behaviors that are happening because they feel like they're grown up now and their parents' rules don't really have an effect on them, right? So it's just better to talk to your friend, talk to your therapist, talk to your religious leader, talk to an adult rather than putting that on your kids. So some things to avoid when you're talking to your kids is their parents' lack of financial contribution, parents' hurtful behavior, infidelity, a parent's sex life, resentment toward the other parent, anger towards the other parent, anxiety about the future, the other parent being wrong about how to parent, early history of the marriage, problem that began in the marriage, and details about the parent's attempts to repair the marriage. These aren't appropriate. Even if the child asks, and even if it's persistent, these are still not topics that the child needs to know about. And let them know that. It's okay to set that boundary. It's okay to say something like, those are things that are between me and your dad, and not something that you're going to know right now. It's okay to set that boundary. Resilience is so important. 73% of young adults believe that they would have been a different person if their parents had not divorced. 49% worried about big events with both where both parents would be, and such as graduations or weddings. 48% said they had a harder childhood. 44% said parents' divorce still caused struggles for them, and 28% wondered if their father even loved them. People surveyed here were college students whose parent had divorced when they were young, and all of whom were doing well in school. So they wondered these things, but they were resilient, right? So how do we start building resilience? Or what does it look like to have a resilient child? The resilient child is still a kid, still happy, still getting along well with others, still does schoolwork and chores, along with the age-appropriate grumbling, sometimes gets into trouble, experiences normal growing up struggles. What the resilient child is not, they're not above grieving, they're not free from all pain, they're not in charge of household or child care responsibilities, they're not responsible for fixing a parent's emotions, they're not the parent's confidant, best friend, or ally in the divorce, they are not supposed to be holding in feelings to protect others or in fear of consequences. They shouldn't be afraid to cause trouble for their parents, and they shouldn't be too grown up. So that goes back to not making your child your confidant, right? Some things that we can do to help build resilience is to help kids label emotions, practice gratitude, looking for positives, and don't invalidate the negatives. Ask specific questions about their day, communicate about feelings and changes, unconditional positive regard. Those are probably my 3 favorite words in the entire English language, unconditional positive regard. What that means is you are meeting the child where they are. If they're sad, you let them be sad and you meet them there, and you don't try to fix it. If they're angry, you let them talk about it. You don't try to fix it. You don't try to fix the problem. You are with them where they are in whatever emotion they are in. That's so important. Listening and building emotional connection, encouraging kids to go outside of their comfort zone, and giving kids choices whenever possible. And like I said, don't fix it for them. Sometimes kids just need to talk, right? They need to know that you understand. One of the biggest conflicts I see between teenagers and parents is parents don't listen. They jump in and try to fix everything. And that's especially difficult when you are going through divorce and you know that the emotions that your child is feeling is because of that divorce. You want to jump in and fix it. Your child just needs to hear you, or let you hear them. You just need to listen to them. Teaching good coping skills, deep breathing, exercise, talking it out, taking breaks, finding hobbies, self-care, like manicures or going for a walk, or being outside. Co-parenting. Children do not need parents who are perfect. Communication is really important. We can set a business-like tone in which the goal of the business is child's well-being, make requests, listen, show restraint, commit to talking consistently, keep conversations kid focused. Trying to have similar rules in each house with similar consequences for breaking them. If a child has lost TV privileges at one parent's house, the other parent should follow through until consequences is over. Aim for similar bedtimes. Of course, what happens at co-parent's house is not something you can control, right? It's good to try to work together, but if you're not part of a cooperative divorce, or you're not able to communicate with your co-parent in a business-like manner, it's going to be hard to control what's going on. So you focus on controlling what's going on in your home. Remind children of transitions, pack in advance, always drop off as they feel always drop them off, and don't pick them up, because if you are picking them up, they might feel like you are taking them away from the other parent. So have your co-parent drop them off, and you drop them off over there, so that it doesn't feel like you're taking them away from the other parent. Parenting plans. An initial plan might be a good idea when the child is 5, but may need to change or be negotiated at 7, 8, or 16, and parents need to be open to that. Children who have true joint custody or something similar do better than parents who are able to co-parent calmly and in a business-like manner. If there's a high conflict, children will do better in a more traditional schedule. They live primarily with one and spend time with the other. Anxious, strong-willed, or sensitive children will have a more difficult time with transitioning. And you might want to adjust for siblings. Children should be asked about input, but be aware that parents make the final decision. So let's talk about some things that you would see if you need to seek help for your child. Decrease in self-esteem, struggling to function at school, activities, or other home for over a month. Child has excessive difficulties with separation. Child has witnessed or experienced domestic violence, or child develops behavior that are atypical for their age. Again, we see a lot of age-typical behaviors that are increased, and we see behaviors that start when the divorce happens. If those are going on for more than a month, it's probably time to talk with somebody. Some tips for parents: it's okay to have different feelings. Give yourself a break. Don't go through this alone. Make sure you're taking care of yourself emotionally. Avoid power struggles. Take time to explore your interests. Think positive, and know that life will get back to a normal, but it may be a new normal. If you're having difficulty controlling your emotions, if you feel angry, if you find that you want to confide emotionally in your child, if you begin to feel like you have no one else to talk to, if you have experienced abuse or domestic violence, and if you feel you may need it, you want to look at getting some help for yourself. Some resources: How to Talk to Your Kids About Divorce with Dr. Rodman, The Truth About Children Divorce by Dr. Emery, Talking with Children About Divorce by Jean McBride. A lot of this information came directly from that book, so I would really, really, really recommend that. And then A Parent's Guide to Divorce by Karen Becker. Okay, so are there any questions, thoughts?
Some great information. There's so much going on, so many dynamics. Krys, thanks so much for covering and providing so many different tips, and just kind of looking at it through your lens. If anybody has questions, please go ahead and type that into the chat right now. Again, we really want to this is for you. And, if some information that Krys presented spurred a question, now is your time. And it looks like we still have 8 participants on the call. Although we went a little longer than normal, Krys, I did not want to stop you because all of the information as I was flipping through such good information. So one question, are there any books a middle schooler could read that you would recommend? Oh, you're muted though.
LaDonna, I don't know of any off the top of my head. Pam has your email address. I'm going to do some research and get back to you on that, because I can think of some for preschoolers and like elementary school age, but I don't know any off the top of my head for middle schoolers, but I will look and find some. Okay, age 10 or 11, got it.
Perfect.
You're welcome.
Boy, they're making it easy on you. Oh, good, good. Another one. What are the names of the books for preschoolers? Can you share those? Yeah.
Okay, so I'm trying to think. The only one that's coming to mind is Maybe Days, but I think that's for more kids that are in foster care. A Terrible Thing Happened might be a good one. Again, let me, I've been working from home since March. So normally I have like a whole bookshelf, but I don't have access to that at the moment. So let me do a little research, and Terry, if you're somebody that Pam has your email address, I am happy to send you a couple of suggestions.
Yep, that would be great. So Terry, that email will probably come from me, unless, so look for an email from pevans@fsgctopeka.com. Yeah, very good. Well, we hope you found it helpful this evening, and please, again, know that this resource, oh good, another one came in. This resource is available, or will be after the end of the day tomorrow, on the fsgctopeka.com website. So if you happen to know, have other friends, colleagues that might be dealing with separation or divorce and think they might benefit, and or your co-parent. It's always great to be on the same page. Please feel free to send them to our website. Okay. So Terry works also works with children birth to 5. So any book suggestions for really littles for the preschools, that'd be good.
Absolutely.
Okay. Good. Okay, good. And
got another request for early childhood books.
All right. Got it. Perfect. Well, very good. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Again, hope you walk away with a few more tools in your toolbox this evening. And I hope you all stay safe, stay well, and have a great holiday season. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.